Then of course, last but not least, we have our whistle. So we can signal when it's time to go or whatever we need. How about a whistle there? Thank you so much, guys. You're going to see all different kinds of variations of engines coming through here. There were many different manufacturers throughout the years, and all had the best idea and the best design back then. But it makes for a neat display to see all the different layouts and how they all operate. All of these engineers here, we love talking about this stuff. We love operating them. So if any of you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to come ask. We're happy to let you know anything you want to know about them. This next engine we have coming through is actually our feature engine this year. We're featuring Minneapolis engines, and this happens to be the feature Minneapolis. This is a 1917 20 horsepower Minneapolis owned and being operated by Mr. Barry Form. Looks like he's got some help up there on the platform. Now Barry purchased this in May of 2022. This was sold new to a sawmill up in Savannah, Missouri, and sold to Elwood Alnett of Chillicothe in 1959. Now if you were around back then, you know that Mr. Elwood owned a motel and a restaurant, and he had that engine on display there, and he was very proud of it for many years. He sold this engine to Mr. Roger Stoner in 1999 of Richmond, Missouri, and restored it fully. It's got a wonderful boiler. This thing has some very good quiet gears on it, and Barry bought it from him a few years ago. Now this one dons what we call a head tank with an extra way to carry water in case you were somewhere where water was not easily accessible. He's also got a water and a fuel tank there on the back. How about a whistle there, Barry?
All you tractor owners out there, we'll be following the steam engines, and we'd like to have a good show in here because we've got a great crowd every day to watch the guys, and so bring those tractors out and show them off here. And also the truck club, we want to keep coming through after the tractor.
All right, this next little engine we got coming through here is a little 1985 half scale built by Mr. Bunch, owned by a guy named Tipton. Now, it was pretty common, and still is pretty common, if someone doesn't necessarily want the big old engines, it's kind of hard to haul around, they build a smaller scale model. It's much easier to haul. Now, it takes just as much safety there to operate one of these. Got to keep the water up and everything on. And on the rear, looks like they have a water and a wood wagon. And again, there was a lot of water and wood wagons built back in the day to give extra capacity to the steam engines that were out in the field working. So they carried their extra capacity there. How about a whistle there? Our next engine coming through is an engine that we affectionately call Proud Mary. This one is a 1915 20 horsepower Advance Rumley that has been owned by the Ozark Steam Engine Association for many, many years. The Ron Mattingly family operates this every year for us, and they've done so for many, many years since it's been on the ground. An advanced Rumley was a very well-built engine. They're highly admired in the steam community. Easy operating, easy firing engine. And this one is no doubt a nice example of that. You guys got a whistle there for us to show that thing on? First, you can hear me, I promise I'm not going to let you down this time. This is Mr. Chris Air, with the 1907 1852 airless that's been sold here for many years. And I do believe he's got his daughter Abby up there with him. This one is owned and operated by Chris and Amy Garrett. He's pretty proud of his work up there. He's got that what we call a 50 whistle there on the front. Airless made a nice engine. They actually have different engines, all of them are built on the same engine. Chris, how about a whistle there? This is one of the largest engines on the ground. Johnson's grandfather, Raymond Carver, owned the 34 power tank that Jeff started now on. So they are no strangers to steam and what all it takes to own and fire one of these. Now Case was a pretty nice engine. They got their bumpers back on the back there. They're a little bit bigger as far as capacity. Hold a lot of water, hold a lot of fuel. Very nice operating machine for you. How about a whistle there, Josh? We have a next one coming through. This one is actually owned by our president and his family, Danny and Robin Erickson. Looks like we got Dana up there. Lost everything now, this is a 1917 2070 horsepower Nicholson Shepherd. This was sold new to a sawmill in Savannah, Missouri. Hey, the wind got me there. It is a 2070 though. This one was bought from Joe Winter of Richard, Missouri in 2016, and Dana and his family have had it here since 2018. This one was used on a sawmill until the early 1950s, which is pretty common. There's a lot of these old steam engines that was used until the 50s and the 60s on sawmills. And then once it left there, it was sold to Mr. Paul I of Appleton City, Missouri. Now this one is bunkered. He's got a wood bunker there on the back, but he's got what we call saddle tanks there to hold all of his water. And this one's a pretty long engine, so having the water tanks there kind of helps balance the engine out because it can get light on the front end if you're pulling a plow or a heavy load there on the back. This one, of course, is a little different than most. This one is actually a 2-cylinder. Most of the engines you see are actually single-cylinder. These were pretty nice for belting in. You can't hardly get them stuck on what we call center, and it's a very nice operating machine. You can operate them pretty slowly too. Melissa, you guys got a whistle there? I promised Josh I wouldn't mess this up, so let's go here. We got Mr. Josh McCauley and his sister Taylor McCauley here. Now the McCauley's have been a staple around these parts for 5 generations, and we're so lucky to call them family, and I call them family. They've got a 1929 17 horsepower Harrison Jumbo, which is actually the newest engine we have here on the ground. And it's actually one of the latest Harrison Jumbos that they made. And following behind them is an 1875 Harrison. This one is a 9 horsepower portable, and that happens to be one of the oldest Harrison engines left known to exist. We're lucky to have them both here. This one is actually a 2-speed design. There's a lever under the flywheel there, so you can go slower on it. That's about all you can do. The Harrison made a really nice engine. They got really tall rear wheels. Now Josh is our vice president, and his dad Randy, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, is our treasurer. Josh and Kayla, you guys got a whistle up there? Up next, it looks like we got Mr. Brian Field and his helper, Mr. James Haney, and Mr. Noah up there on Brian Field's 1927 19 horsepower Keck Donnerman. Now this one came, it was actually sold in Berger, Missouri, and used on a sawmill for many years. It was actually used on a sawmill up in Stockton for a long time as well, up until the 1950s. Keck Donnerman made really nice engines. Of course, I say all of them are nice, so that's kind of what I'm into here. This one is what we call a rear mount engine. Several of the engines are, and that really has to do with how the rear wheels are mounted. Some of the rear mount engines they consider a better plowing engine than others, or at least they were advertised that way. He's due to the family that had owned this before him, and he was very, very lucky that they reached out to him and he was able to purchase it from him a few years ago. He grew up on this engine, and he's pretty darn proud of it, and he'd love to tell you all about it if you give him a chance. Brian and James, you guys got a whistle? Up next, we have a very, very nice example of a 1921 21 horsepower Baker. Now, Bakers are known for their Baker bark. When you get one of these under a load in a belt, a lot of the steam enthusiasts really like to hear them. There's their unique design and their cylinder and their valve gearing that helps give them that sound. This one is owned and operated by Mr. John and Dan Beaker. His family, or their family, bought it from the original owners in 1977 in Nashville, Illinois. And the Beaker family's owned it ever since. They restored it, and it's been out here for many, many years. Baker's a very popular engine. You see quite a few of them over in Ohio, which is where they were made, kind of over on the East Coast. This one's painted up very nicely. It's a well-running machine. You guys got a whistle for us there? Up next, we have another Advanced Runway. This one is owned and operated by the Charlie Stark. It looks like we got Daniel up there. His wife Gas up there, operating it. Charlie's father, the late Frank Stark, purchased it in the late 1920s. They traded it some years later, but they were able to buy it back in the 1940s, and it's been back in the family ever since. It's been one of the staples here at the show for many, many years. Whenever it was new, they used this around Billings, Missouri. Did a lot of threshing work and a lot of road grader work with it as well. Dan, you've got a whistle there for us? Following behind the advanced runway, we got some newcomers here that decided to join us this year, and we're so happy to have them here. This is Mr. Devin Galley and Ethan Lockridge. They're on a 1913 Frick 8x10. They purchased this in 2020 from Chris and David Jowett. This one actually spent its working life in Florida. Now, I learned something the other day. They don't just have citrus groves in Florida, so that's not where it worked. This one was actually used on a sawmill down there for many, many years. They joined us out of Owensville, Missouri, and we're lucky that they trucked it down here. Hopefully they'll come back next year. It's been a pleasure to have them. Rick had a pretty unique design. If you look at them, they actually mounted their boilers to a frame, and they're pretty nice if you got to strip one of these down for boiler work. You can have a boiler off one of these things within a day. They're also known, and they put on a wonderful threshing demonstration earlier. It was pretty easy to belt them backwards since the flywheel's so close to the operator, and you could do a lot of work that way. They told me the other day, the gentleman that ran the sawmill would actually run the belt backwards to the sawmill. He would throw wood into the fire, and then he would operate the sawmill himself. So you almost got to be an octopus to be able to do that, so bless him for doing that. Guys, you got a whistle there for me? Alright, up next, we actually have the oldest engine as far as traction engine goes on the ground right here. This one's an 1893 12 horsepower Peerless, owned and operated by the Louis McCaffrey family. I do believe if my eyes don't deceive me, we may have Corbin Michael and Sheldon Michael up there. Now this one is pretty unique too. It's old enough. If you look at the rear wheels, they actually have wooden spokes on them, which all these other engines, they've got metal spokes. And you'll notice the flywheel is actually on the left-hand side instead of the much more common right-hand side. Louis was a charter member here at the show. We're sad to have lost him a couple years ago, but we're so glad that his family joins us here every year. How about a whistle there, guys? Up next, we got another little guy. However, this one is actually considered a full-size engine. This is a 1911 30 horsepower case, owned by Jack and Charlie Root, being operated by Mr. Brian Morrison. Looks like he's got some help up there operating it too. This one's pretty neat in that it actually has a headlight up front. We joked that wasn't so the operator could see it, no, it was so that people could see the operator. They didn't put out much light, but they were good. They were good for what they were back in the day. Jeff is the president of the Oil and Gas Engine and Tractor Association, Branch 16, that hosts the show with us. Mason's a very popular manufacturer. You've seen the big 80 horsepower case earlier, and they made engines as small as this as well, so you kind of size your engine for whatever you needed. How about a whistle there, Brian? Up next, we got a little 1903 16 horsepower dark scout. This one is actually owned by Toby Russell. Toby's been a member here for many years. being operated by Mr. Joe McKee and his mom, Lisa McKee. They joined us out of Oklahoma. They've been around for a few years. Thank you guys for being here. This one used to carry a head tank on it for extra water, but it's actually out being rebuilt right now. So Mr. Joe has actually built a wooden water wagon to carry behind it to give it the water that it needs to operate. You actually, if you're on the announcement stand side, you can see a hand pump there on the side. So you can either pull water up out of a pond or a ditch or what have you and fill the tank or whatever you needed. You get water to where it needed to go. How about a whistle there, Joe? Alright, this one is near and dear to my heart. This is a 1920 28 horsepower Minneapolis. It's actually owned by myself, my brother Jesse White, and Gibbs Thurman up there at the steering wheel. Now we got the wonderful Miss Nicole up there as well, helping Gibbs. And I won't embarrass her too bad, but today is her birthday. If we can give her a round of applause here. So this one may not be quite as pretty as Mr. Barry's painted at Minneapolis, but this one is a pretty original engine here. They come out of Kansas, where it ran a sawmill crew, and actually did a lot of road work. This area shows a lot of road work there. And it's missing a canopy, though I wish I had a canopy for it. We'll eventually go there. 28 horsepower with a pretty large size engine. It's one of the larger engines here as well. And we're happy to call this home. How about a whistle there, guys?
Okay, we've had one slip in on us here. This is the homemade job. It's a 1995 C-Cab truck owned by Mike and Lisa McKee of Oil City, Oklahoma. And it's powered by a 1937 Hercules engine. So we've seen that running around the ground here. So we got that one stuck in on us. Get back here.
Looks like we might have a couple little guys following up here. This one is a little 3-lane engine built by Harry Poffenberg. This one, Mr. Ethan Brown, has gotten back up and running the last couple years. He's been playing with it this weekend. This one is a nice little freelance model again. Kind of little half scale, easier to haul around, easier to operate. A lot of fun. And following behind him is Mr. Ethan Brown himself, operating Brian and Sarah Field. I think Mr. Calvin Field as well. His little half-scale guard stop engine. Brian's on this one for a few years now. And he's gotten it all painted up and put a little hood paint on it and everything. Ethan's there firing it today at the home. How about it, Lincoln? We got a couple tractors coming in here to kind of go between the steam stuff and the gas stuff. We would usually call these furry tractors or transitional tractors. There was a period of time between the smaller gas and kerosene tractors and the large steam engines of the day where we had these machines that kind of come between. They bridged the gap there. Oil Pull made a nice tractor, very popular. You see several of them here. This one's a smaller one. Really like the color on this one. Back in the day, while they were transitioning over gas and kerosene and whatnot, they always thought it would just be a fad. So there's actually an overlap period while steam engines were being made, they were actually making tractors, and they still did that for the guys that were holding out, and they still wanted the steam engines. As a matter of fact, by 1920 or so, some of these gas tractors that are out here on display were already being made, some of those steam engines that just came through were made at the same time.
out here in front of us here is my son Jeff Ruth here, who's the president of the tractor and gas engine club. And this is a 1918 Lumber Oil Pull, model 16-38. And it's owned by Jeff and Brian Larson of, they own that together and sell it together there. Brian always comes out from Iowa there to help so as you can see, that one's all in the original shape. They found it in the barn and you never had to do anything to it. And they cranked that thing up and it started off in about the first time. So very unique there. And we got another oil pull coming through here. It's a really bigger one here, and that was owned by the Donut family. And of course, this all got out of new paint, decals, and everything. So everything's showing up here for really many years. Anyway, that's on good.